Good afternoon. I'm Smith Bindeman. So the big reason why we started this session is during COVID, because parents were so concerned that they just dropped off the teenager. And are they doing well? Are they fine? Because there's limited cell phone time, and I'll explain that why in a moment. Parents was concerned. So we used to have this on a Wednesday evening, but the attendance was poor. So instead, we decided to have a in-person sessions on every second Saturday, but the turn up was the same. So that is the prefix to this session. The main aim of this is just to settle the parents' in anxiousness and make them feel more at ease. So this is the content I would like to discuss to achieve that outcome. I would like to show you what it looks like at Bloom Care. So there's this big room with a white board and a lot of seating, and there's some nice other chairs as well for those kids that struggle to sit still. It's a very pretty ward. There's a lot of external features as well. Beautiful area. There's a kitchen nook as well, and there's a lot of food. So no teenager is allowed to say they were hungry. There's enough. There's also outside area where the teenagers just can just get outside and just clear their minds as well. So it's not very big, but it's enough to achieve the goal that it was designed for. Now, the best way to describe what's happening in Bloom Care is to see, okay, all of us, we have a recipe of how we work. And to change that recipe, we go through six different phases. The first phase is usually where someone tells you something. As an example, if I tell you, stop using sugar in your coffee and tea, you will be in phase one where you are thinking, who's this person? I'm not going to take this person serious. I'm not taking them to mind at all. But if someone else tells you that same message as well, you might go to the second phase where now you're contemplating, you're thinking about it a little bit. But if someone else tells you as well, sugar, it's really bad for you, it's making you tired and so, then you can go to the third phase. And this is where you make a decision, where you say, from now on, I'm going to use no sugar or at least less sugar. But you haven't done anything so far. And then the first three phases, the important thing here to notice is what you achieve here is only achieved by getting information on whatever needs to happen. Then the fourth phase, this is the action phase. Now you're making a cup of coffee and tea using no sugar. And if you take that cup of coffee and tea and you're able to finish it, then you go to the fifth phase, which is the maintenance phase. And if you grab the sugar pot and you just pour extra in just to make up for the taste of the sugarless coffee, then you go to the sixth phase, and that's the relapse phase. Now you have to start all over again. Now in the fourth and fifth phase, the big thing that you need over there is a plan. How are you going to leave sugar alone? So this is exactly what's happening in Bloom Care. There's a lot of people giving you information on what's happening in Bloom Care, and there's a lot of people that help the teenagers to make a plan on how to achieve this outcome. Now it's just more on an emotional level, which makes it really difficult. So each child has their own psychiatrist and psychologist. This is the people that are making the change more individualized and helping them to find this recipe for the individual selves. You will also have to follow up with these people after discharge. Usually, the psychiatrist wants to see the teenagers every 3 or 6 months. The psychologist usually 2, 3 weeks after discharge, just to make sure is the progression still happening. Then there's a lot of group sessions that's presented by psychologists, occupational therapists, counselors, physiotherapists, social workers, dietitians, a lot of different people to get this information from a different viewpoint. So that's what's happening there. Then we also take them on outings like horse therapy or the botanical gardens or so to do the same thing, but just from a different angle as well. And then there's two things I would love to copy and paste for everyone. And that is physical exercise is so important for people. And it's difficult for teenagers to do this if grown-ups don't do it also. So this is something that's beneficial for all of us. Then cell phones is causing a lot of problems for people. So we limit it for 1 hour while they're in bloom care. But it's ideal rule to have at home as well. The more time we spend on our phones, the more unhappiness we will experience. So a nice limit is 2 hours a day. That's adequate. Then there's enough time for schoolwork and all of these things. But when I speak to, well, teenagers and students, usually their times goes from 8 to 16 hours per day, which is causing a lot of problems. Now, to explain temperaments, we can either be an extrovert, meaning people energize us, or we can be an introvert, meaning that we get energized by being alone. And then we can either be people orientated or task orientated. For each one of these categories, we give a letter. So the D is usually the extrovert task oriented people, which is the dreamers, the visionary people. Extrovert people oriented, that's the spontaneous, fun loving, social butterfly. And the people orientated introverts, that's the stable, loyal people that are very adaptable. And then we have the introverted task orientated. That's the analytical people that lives in a black and white world where it's a yes or no, there's no gray area. Now, all of these have different strengths and weaknesses, and no one's right, no one's wrong. We just see the world differently. And if we know where everyone in our household is, it's easier for us to manage the household. So I would suggest that you find out your teenager and which quadrants do they fall, so that it's easier for you to manage them, and also to get feedback from the psychologist or psychiatrist to say, but how should you deal with different issues like discipline? How will you discipline your teenager? Because these four types of teenagers will also respond differently depending on which punishment you give. It's almost like when the teenagers is discharged, it's almost like their life stood still for 2 weeks. So try to have grace and um, allow them to catch up on the same timeline as you. So if you move or buy a new car or get a new pet, it makes it difficult for the teenagers just to catch up again, and they feel it's they don't feel that welcome. So try to be mindful of that. Then we have different boundaries as well. So these three types of boundaries, you have the loose boundaries, that's the people that say yes to everything. And then we have the very rigid boundaries, that's the people that say no to everything. And the ideal that we are striving for is people that have boundaries that's a yes or a no. But we see many times that we feel many times that no means rejection. No doesn't mean rejection. Actually, it's the opposite. It's almost like a door that you give someone to get to know you. So if you allow um, a no, it's easier for you to understand where's this person coming from. So if someone gives you a no, just ask them friendly, but why are you saying no? So that you can get the benefit of getting to know them better. Then we all struggle with communication, and this is the basic pattern of a communication that's happening. So the R is for asking questions, B is for being quiet, and C is to confirm what you've heard. And this seems simple, but we struggle to follow this pattern, especially when it comes to being quiet. Instead of being quiet, we are either busy judging this person, jumping to conclusions about this person, selective listening, only hearing to parts that you want to hear, impatient listening, that's many times the romantic one, where we are so connected to each other, we sort of finish each other's sentences. But it's rude, and you make people feel unwelcome. especially if that person's temperament is the S temperament. So be wary of that. And then we have egocentrical listening. That's thinking of the response that you're going to give when this person eventually stops talking. Then patronizing listening. That's pretending that you're listening, but meanwhile you're thinking of a lot of other things, like what you're going to make for dinner tonight, and it's just making people feel unwelcome. We also have stubborn listening. That is where your mind is already made up. So it doesn't matter what this person says, and your mind is made up. So you're not going to change your mind. And if you've ever felt like um, inspired after talking to someone, it's because that person was able to stay quiet while you were talking. And that made this encounter feel almost magical. So if we are able to stay quiet while the teenager is talking to us, it will also give them that magical experience, which will um, encourage them to talk to us again. And that is the parent session in a nutshell. If you would like some more information, please don't hesitate, contact me, and then we can have a more in-depth session. Thank you so much. Have a good day.